Hey everybody, we are back. I'm Christopher Green. You're watching AMTV, Alternative Media Television. It is Thursday, September 8, 2016. I pulled a really good read yesterday from Zero Hedge. I haven't checked in on their website in a while, and again, I'm not plugging them or pitching them or anything like that, but a really good article. And it's just rare that you get a good read, that you get something really intelligent, which isn't just this circular banter that new media just kind of puts out in this digital age where it's just kind of a regurgitation of the same topics. It was somebody actually thinking who had some striking points to make. This is why I read a lot too, and I read books, because you can't just, pay attention to the media. It's a very circular, thing, and that's the nature of it. But I pulled this article. It's titled Clinton versus Trump and the Co-option of the Liberty Movement, and submitted by Brandon Smith via alt-market.com. And I liked it because he plays the devil's advocate in it. He actually disagrees with me specifically on the idea that Trump loses, that the system is rigged that way towards Hillary. I mean, we know it's rigged. There's probably agreement there. But his position is that the establishment elite have put, the right-left paradigm in place as we see it in 2016. So Hillary faces off with the Donald. Hillary plays the supervillain because she's so villainous and she's got all these problems and all these, criminal acts that she's committed. And then Trump, and I would agree with this part, fills the anger, the political vacuum of new media, like what we see here with AMTV, what's gained popularity and become mainstream, where the original Tea Party, people like Ron Paul, a lot of people don't know Ron Paul started that movement, but then it was co-opted by the mainstream media. You saw the GOP establishment begin to co-opt it, hold their own rallies. See, what they first did was demonize it, right? They demonized the movement as white nationalists or something like that. But then when it picked up so much steam through the decentralization network of the most powerful idea and movement on the planet, the Liberty Movement, the Freedom Movement, not just here in the United States, but worldwide, then they began to co-opt it. So his thesis is Trump wins. And I've talked about how I think Trump was a catharsis, and there's a reason they position. I just think Hillary's the one that they pick. His idea is pretty much an agreement with my thesis up into who wins. But the idea is it's a one-party system. It's all been pre-decided. Trump gets in, and then the quote-unquote Liberty Movement is essentially co-opted, where people are like, they take a deep breath because they think that they've won, right? Trump's in there like as a patsy, but this allows the establishment, instead of, because the demonization isn't working anymore and the vacuum's too strong, that they just go along with it and they co-opt it instead. Now, this is a legitimate tactic of war. I mean, this is something that, the mainstream establishment, political system, military-industrial complex does regularly. And I think it's important to kind of play devil's advocate here. He goes on to say that we've got to be critical if and when this does happen. He says, maybe I'm wrong, but if Trump gets in, we've got to hold Trump to the same standards as we would, hold Hillary or Obama or anybody else. And then he talks about, or at least insinuates, a lot of the topics that we discuss here on a regular basis, that, the next president inherits war, is going to be faced with all these burdens of, problems, that we can't let things slide when Trump gets in. For example, Trump gets in, let's say he wins. I'm wrong. Hillary doesn't win. He's right. Trump wins, and immediately we're faced with the threat of global war, which I think we already have. But it's more readily apparent. He's got to make these decisions. Something terrible happens, the lights go out in a part of the world, maybe here in the United States, God forbid, they've got to shut things down. He declares martial law. Now, we've got to hold Trump, to the same accountability in that situation as, a libertarian or a freedom fighter of these things as you would, the totalitarian chess piece that makes up Hillary Clinton or Obama. And I think it's a good point. It's important to think about the counter arguments and not just be one way on anything. I talk about this all the time. I'm more anti-Hillary Clinton than I am pro-Trump. I'm just anti-Hillary and I want the establishment feathers to be ruffled, which I think is legitimately happening. One of the reasons why I support Trump, and he's an anti-politician, all these things, I think there's legitimacy to it. But I do think he loses. I'm not happy about that. But I also think it's important that we think, again, of the counterpoint. And so it was just a very smart, eloquent, poignant read that got me thinking. And, he goes on, I'll read a segment here. He says, consider, for instance, the aggressive takeover of the Tea Party movement by the neoconservative Guard. He goes on to say, I joined activist efforts in 2007 when the Tea Party was small but growing and organized primarily around the goal of auditing and or shutting down the Federal Reserve. Many people are not even aware that the Tea Party was launched by Ron Paul, among other libertarian voices. Then he talks about the demonization and how it was eventually co-opted by mainstream politicians. And he brings up an important argument that I don't think should be missed, and we should even probably talk about more on this show. Let's be careful not to only just see this war, physical conflict, the intelligence war, the propaganda war, is just a East versus West thing, right? Western powers, Western nations, the United States are allies versus the rising East, Russia and China. It's bigger than that. In a lot of regard, all of these nations are on the same team to a certain extent. There's differences, but the New World Order paradigm in this agenda is actually one of integration, not the other way around. For example, basic example, U.S. is at war with Putin. We are actively engaged in war in places like Ukraine and Syria, etc. But we do still have a common enemy, ISIS. The U.S., even though they created it, are bombing ISIS to use it as a smokescreen to take them out, to invade these parts of the world, and Putin also is bombing ISIS. But he's also supporting Assad at the same time. So there's common ground in a lot of this. There's actually more integration of this New World Order paradigm than there is just the differences that are put out there as a propaganda mechanism of war and psychological warfare that we as Americans are at war with Putin. Putin and Russians are at war with the United States. The U.S. is at war with the East, and the East is at war with the West. I mean, that's what the picture, how the picture is painted. But it's not necessarily true. And we can't always take these things at face value. Something I think that we should talk about in more detail. And again, it's so important that we think critically, that we're not just engaged in the circular nature of the digital age, that you read, you have other sources of information, that it's, not just online. Because it's very it's very easy to step into the trap. I mean, just looking at Drudge Today, what are they talking about? And I talked about this on the first segment that we spoke about today. What is the storyline? Well, the storyline is the earpiece, which I think they're getting wrong because I think it was put there for a reason by Hillary's people. To again, take the eye off the ball of the more critical questions and the skeletons that she needs to air out of her closet so that it kind of, ruffles into more of this conspiracy theory talk so that they and she can discredit it through the mainstream media that she owns and her puppet masters own. But really all I'm seeing from Drudge and, the quote-unquote conservative media is that, she was cheating. I actually don't think that's the full story. I think there's a lot more to it. Again, the rabbit hole goes really deep. I mean, the more time you spend on these things, the more times you think about things, how things are being positioned, the international geopolitical chess game as it is today, you can see, a dozen, 100, 1,000 moves ahead. All of this is being well thought out. And I see, again, more of an integrated concept towards New World Order integration and that paradigm than I just see the black and white facade, just like the two-party system, created the West versus the East and that paradigm to fuel the fire of the propaganda and the war narrative. Just like we demonized other nations like the Japanese, during World War II, for example, and through the Japs and new internment camps and the demonization of those people, that they have to demonize so that you believe that it's a humane thing to kill other people. That's what they do. Just for the same reason they don't want you to think of these other countries and your neighbors and these other citizens as human beings. They don't want you to think that, like, Russians aren't too different from Americans. North Koreans aren't too different from Americans. Chinese aren't too different from Americans, but they paint the picture politically through the propaganda narrative because it fuels the fire of that physical, intelligence, and psychological warfare that makes up the most powerful entity on the planet, the mainstream media. And people ask me why do you do AMTV? Because we are fighting a war. Check it out. I actually encourage you to read it. Why don't you patronize it? It's a great article. I'd actually like to hear your thoughts on it. Again, folks, I'm concerned the internet October 1st, and we're already seeing the clampdown. I'm seeing it with my content, something that I've expected for years, that I've conditioned you guys for. Like, look, we don't have this platform forever. I'm not going to be able to speak my mind forever. It's why we've been building our own platform. We've set up our websites. We've set up on demand. Our video delivery system is to combat this censorship. I pulled an article from Cuba, or on Cuba, from The Verge, saying Cuba is blocking text messages that contain words like democracy. We're now flights are taking off, and you can visit Cuba for the first time in like 50 years or, something like that. But people only think that this kind of censorship happens in places like Cuba or China or Russia or, North Korea. But it's happening here too. I see it every day from the inside, from what we do, just pushing content, getting the truth out, making videos, posting articles and these kinds of things. People are like, oh, well, they do this in Cuba. No, they're doing it in the United States. And I've been talking about it more because we've been dealing with it for years. But it's become a greater topic of discussion because even the mainstream pop culture, digital pundits, speakers, broadcasters are being affected by this overt censorship. And we've seen this uproar in recent days and weeks where they're just shocked that even pop culture content is being censored by these too big to fail tech giants that are essentially political machines. And since they monopolize the free speech platform, are directly violating, in my opinion, the First Amendment, our right to free speech and these things, because they are the only platform. And this is why it's so dangerous. It's not just happening for what people would call, fringe ideas or these, the liberty-oriented message that makes up the liberty movement. It's now affecting all media, unless you're the establishment that makes up CNN, Fox, MSNBC, et cetera. This is from the Washington Examiner. FEC commissioner warns Dems are gunning for conservative media. Remember, a Supreme Court justice said that he would shut down, told this to Matt Drudge's face of the Drudge Report, with the most heavily trafficked website on the planet, not just for conservative media, but just media in general, that they're going to shut him down. They won't allow him to link to articles. There was even a report today that came, I think, from Playboy that they won some kind of lawsuit that they can prevent inbound links to their material or to their photographs and these kinds of things. This is all happening not like in a year from now or 2 years from now. It's happening October 1st. Everybody's starting to talk about it, which is a good thing. They're bringing awareness. Hopefully we could put a stop to it. I mean, that would be my hope, that there would be a pushback. We've seen like internet blackouts and stuff before from the internet community. Who was the Reddit founder, Aaron Swartz, who was suicided or essentially committed suicide because he, hacked some like educational system or something like that, but Hillary Clinton walks away scot-free. We have seen some of this, pushback effective in the past. Ted Cruz, as Donald Trump would say, Lion Ted Cruz, is gearing up for a fight against the internet transition. Again, all this happens next month, October 1st. I mean, they're transferring all ownership of to the United Nations of the internet today. And, people like me, organizations like ours, don't know how much longer we can continue to broadcast and, put out the truth, which is why you guys have to support us directly and support our own infrastructure. The system is rigged, folks. It is absolutely controlled, and we can't put our heads in the sand any longer. It's up to you to stand up to the political establishment, to make active choices in your own lives, not to support people, companies, politicians that hurt you. Like I said, who's the CEO of Starbucks, right? How many people patronize Starbucks? That guy's fully endorsing Hillary Clinton. I mean, he's, one of the guys asking you about race relations when you pick up a cup of coffee. Stop going. Never go to a Starbucks again. Hit them where it hurts, in their wallets. Don't patronize businesses, people, politicians that hurt you. Vote with your wallet. That's why I ask, and I've been asking, vote with your wallet with us. Donate to us, support us, $4.95 a month on demand at amtvmedia.com. Hit these guys where it really, really hurts. Same thing with the big tech companies. You know what? You're going to ban all of our shit? Screw you guys. Everyone go off YouTube, mass exodus. Build a new one, build a new system. Which is difficult to do, but you know what? I'll build it. I really will. If you guys supported it, you guys wanted me to build an alternative. I mean, that's essentially what we're doing now, but it's at a very small level. We can do it. I'll do it. I'll spearhead the freaking thing. Hit these guys where it hurts. Don't do business with them. Don't use their systems. Some of it's difficult because it's so vastly integrated, like the financial system, right? And the banks. Even if you go to like a credit union locally and you take out a mortgage, they immediately securitize it and sell it off to Chase, for example, Bank of America. So you're still patronizing them through interest payments, the too big to fails. One of the reasons why all of them should have gone down and been allowed to fail in 2008, 2009, but instead they squashed the little guy. Some of it's difficult because it's so tightly woven and integrated, but one of the great things about the internet has been that it's the Wild West, that people like, for example, Julian Assange, and this is just a teaser, says that this week and next, he's dropping more bombshells that he could single-handedly take down through his truth bombs Hillary, Rotten, Clinton. We've already seen him start to do it. We saw it with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. We saw it with the DNC. We saw it with the Iraq War and the atrocities. Remember them gunning down in helicopters and Americans laughing as they're just slaughtering people in wars that were, fabricated as an excuse for our response to September 11th, even though the country had nothing to do with it at all. And many believed it to be a cover-up at the very least, if not an inside job, an intelligence operation by our own political operatives and figures. So they can, run through the Patriot Act, steal our freedom, control all of us. I'll leave it there today. I want to thank everybody sincerely for tuning in. It honestly means a lot to me. I really do love you guys. I'm humbled that you put me in the position that I'm in to do what I do. Thank you for supporting not just me, but our team, all the great people behind the camera. In fact, I saw a comment the other day that said, man, your crew doesn't get enough credit, man. They kick ass. The video editing's off the hook. You guys building the new show on limited means and getting all this stuff going. Everything you guys are doing at Freedom Fest, for example, dropping bombshell interviews with Steve Forbes and these major figures. I mean, this stuff, it isn't easy, but we're doing it. And, I was gonna talk about Tim Tebow. It's a little bit of a tangent, and I don't really follow football much, but I think the guy's an inspiration. He was now signed to a minor league contract. And I just kind of wanted to highlight him because he's the type of individual that I really respect. He's a good example. Our media should give people like him more attention. He's a God-fearing man. He doesn't cuss. He's a good example to our children. He's had trouble, making it in the NFL. And he's like, you know what? Because he's just a fighter. He's like, I'm going to play baseball now. Now he's just signed a minor league contract. Who knows? Maybe he can go all the way to the big leagues. And if he can't, he's just a winner. He'd probably make a good coach someday or something like that. And just my point being is that so much of what we do and what we've built and you've built here at AMTV has been, grassroots. Everything from our mic flag, that was given to me by a subscriber. Like our equipment is from subscribers. Our backgrounds are from subscribers. The cell phones we were using, some of my first video cameras, all from you, our subscribers. You've been supporting all of it. And I just have the mindset that, we're just going to do it. Because so many people just fail to try. They fail to do anything. And yes, I feel like an ant, as I'm sure you guys do, marching up the hill. But at the end of the day, I just have to be faithful. And I, honest to God, think that we can win because I think that the truth and the light and goodness and God is on our side. And I believe in all of you tuning in. Thank you so much. Get it out everywhere. Make it viral. Hard-hitting in your face. We'll be posting this, all of this content, what they allow, although I think one of the videos will be assuredly banned, but all of it that we can get out to you for as long as you can. And we'll keep fighting. Hard hitting it in your face. Peace.